I think it's easy to make the mistake of let's go hire the best, and the best will solve our sales problems. I'm a big believer, more than ever, after seeing the full cycle of in-house to remote, that actually having in-office talent is key to building culture and to create stickiness and just to get the best performance.
Welcome to Human First, the go-to-market hiring show. I'm your host, Danielle Parker, head of marketing at Captivate Talent. For European and UK-based founders, cracking the US market is often the defining growth challenge, and the instinct is usually to hire fast and hire senior. But that instinct, without the right foundation in place, can be exactly what breaks the expansion before it even gets started. Today, we're getting into the real mechanics of what it takes to build a commercial team in the US when you're coming from the outside. The cultural differences, the talent dynamics, and the hiring calls that determine whether it actually works or not. Our guest, James, founded Cognism and scaled it from $0 to $80 million in ARR, navigating the UK to the US transition firsthand. And he learned some of those lessons the hard way. Super excited to have you here today, James. Thank you for making the time. You are someone that we have known for many years, I think both of us. So we're just going to get right into it. So when you made the decision to expand Cognism into the US, what was your assumption about building the commercial team there? And did that assumption get tested? And if yes, how quickly?
So when I looked to expand to the US, the first thing I did was to go and just do research and just speak to other UK founders who'd gone to the US and been successful or who had failed. And there were a couple of, I guess, big key lessons from that. One was there was just a repeated pattern that people who'd just gone and hired a senior person in the US, like your big brand name, B2B SaaS company, sales CRO or type hire or senior salesperson hire, they had almost always failed. And the big advice that came out of that was to take some of your own team and take them over first of all, supplant the culture and your playbooks, and then build out from that base. And that had worked for company like some of the founders I'd met. So I selected that formula, and we picked one of our staff that was a US citizen and had been there since the founding of the company and had worked in several functions of the business, and then took him out there with two of the senior sales people and started in New York.
Why do you think that is, that pattern of, just hire senior from day one, not transplanting any of your own people? What tends to go wrong when founders take that route?
I think one of the things is that at a very large corporation, you haven't, you may be tinkering with the system that's built there and the playbooks and the methodology. You probably haven't built it up from scratch. When you're starting in a new region, it's really like starting a new startup. You have to iterate on messaging. Mm-hmm. You have to iterate on positioning. You need to get really scrappy again. So I think zooming out and just designing the system and not being hands-on, it just doesn't work in that way. And you can't go and just take your playbook from your old corporation and where you've been before and just apply that. You also all of the systems aren't there, all of the support isn't there in terms of marketing. You have to build all of that out. So there's having that time to just build out all the materials and all of the processes you need. And, typically when you're bringing in somebody very senior as well, I think there's a high expectation on the revenue that they make and a high expectation on the revenue you expect them to make. Whereas actually that building phase is in itself is probably a good 18 months period to build out just the base to start to build the revenue from. So having a really, I think realistic expectation on just building the foundation to build the sales team on, I think that's a really critical piece of that. And when you go and bring over, assets from your home base and take them over, then they bring a lot of that with them, the playbooks, the materials, just knowing the people inside the organization to speak to get things done. And I think like it's just it's a basic skill that's needed for the new location to be able to tap into the knowledge network at the home base.
James, I'm real curious. Obviously we've seen a lot that hire that way too senior, the old Rolodex, big company type of hire that always fails. Did anyone talk to you about the other end of the spectrum, where the bottom up, where have you seen anyone or talked to anyone that like tries to hire that junior hire first without transplanting somebody over?
I mean, that goes well, from what I've seen, that goes wrong faster. It's less expensive, so there's the benefit there. But I mean, I think again, like you just got to do it properly. You've got to take, some of your staff, the good ones, to like the really good ones, move them over to the new location and build from that base. I haven't seen it work, and I've looked at lots of examples. Either way, like the super junior hire, like let's just build out an SDR team in the same way that we built it out in the home base, and just give that a try. You need, and also the founder needs to be going over, like the founders need to be going over the senior leadership needs to be going over regularly to make sure that everything's working and that the new team has all the support they need.
Can you define what regularly means? Because I think some people think that's like once a quarter.
I didn't have the time to go as much as I wanted to go. Of course, the more you can go, I mean, if you can be there monthly, if the founder can actually move to the location, even better. I mean, that goes even, from the examples I've seen, that works out even more. So the best thing to do is to get the founder to move to the location. But we sent a very early employee, probably employee number 3, and they did a great job.
Yeah, I think from what I remember, you guys were on like a rotation. Like one of you was out there.
Yes,
one
yeah,
week,
that was how we did it.
Like
yeah.
3 weeks out of the month, somebody was out there from the leadership team.
And we started in New York, so it wasn't like that was painful. That was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk about that for a minute, because we see that all the time with geography. Founders are like adamant, like we want this one place and that's it. New York, San Francisco, most of the time. But you guys started in New York, and then you pivoted to building in Boston.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that decision and the importance of staying flexible in terms of thinking about geography when you're scaling, especially in the U.S.
New York was driven partly by the desire of the individuals that were moving out there initially. Mm-hmm. I think New York was a great place to start. Like we moved out there about 2019, and then of course COVID hit. So I think for us, it helped to build that base. It helped us to start selling the differences of the market. When we then moved up to hiring like a senior sales leader in the US, the best location was Boston, because that area had expertise in B2B data. Like there were a lot of B2B sales intelligence companies there. There was a lot of talent there. There was a lot of experience there. I mean, I guess one of the things that really should be highlighted about the US, and another really great reason to go out to the US, is because you have sales talent there that has broader experiences. That there are companies with far larger revenue, in terms of just far more companies. So you're going to get the experience coming back into your company, their playbooks coming back into your company. You're going to be learning from them, and certainly like a big part of it is finding the expertise that will grow your company, which you might not be able to have available to you in Europe. Yeah. And so moving to Boston really helped us. Like we managed to bring in very significant experience across functions like customer success, account management, sales solutions. The talent with the skill set, with the skills levels in B2B sales intelligence, that talent just wasn't available. There wasn't a history of those companies in Europe. So like that was a really I think a key to deciding like where are you going to go is, okay, where is the talent that I want to hire that has expertise in our product area? And so, for us, Boston was the natural location.
So I want to double down on the Boston, New York thing. And this is a little dangerous because I have a quasi Bostonite next to me.
Bostonite.
Yeah. If that specific industry talent wasn't there, would you have made the move up to Boston? And also, how would you compare the two? Because people ask us about Boston a lot, so I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
One of the issues with New York is that there's a lot of competition. I mean, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot more, I would say, churn in sales talent there. There's a lot more opportunity. I guess also people are moving in and out of the city as well.
Yep.
I think you either love New York or hate New York.
Choose you out, spits you out very quickly. Yeah.
Or you get very tired very quickly of New York. So I think one of the reasons for moving out of New York was because I didn't see it as very sustainable to grow a very large sales team in New York. And so moving to Boston, there was the talent that was there. B, like it did feel like with the team, it felt a lot more stable. The office space was cheaper. To get back, like significantly cheaper. I think there's definitely this big, I suppose, cultural difference between Boston and New York in terms of the staff. So, for us, it was a lot more stable. We got this access to this huge talent pool that had a lot more deeper talent and deeper skills than we had in the industry before, in terms of understanding the market and then understanding that specific market in the US specifically, right? And how to sell our solution into the US market. There was deep expertise in that. So, there's hiring people that are generally good salespeople and then hiring people that are very good salespeople in your product area, right? And so like that, Boston was the right location for that.
I think that goes back to like our recommendation is if you're going there because the talent's there. You're not going there just because you picked that city.
No, I think, there's a lot of opinions about different cities, right? Like, I was always, people kept on telling me Salt Lake City was an amazing city because the Mormon culture, the Mormon selling culture.
Sales talent.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, low cost. So, San Francisco, one of the things that was always in the back of my mind is I saw one of our competitors raise a Series A round, spend it all on a very expensive sales team in San Francisco, and they were burnt out in an 18 months and gone as a competitor.
Was that a European competitor? Or
that was a European competitor, and again, the management, to my understanding, didn't move out there.
Yep.
And it left like a very expensive team that wasn't really connected into the products and competing in a fiercely competitive market without any brand, right? It's the worst recipe and the best way to burn money very quickly.
I feel like that's the playbook for some European companies.
I think it's easy to make the mistake of let's go hire the best, and the best will solve our sales problems and get our messaging right in the US market, which they can help you iterate to find the right messaging. They can help you iterate, but again, it's the management and the senior team that's gonna that really needs to do the iterating. That really needs to find the messaging for that market, and and the people you hire can help, but they're not going to be as committed, or they're not going to be. They what you really need to give them is a working system. That's why it's really good to go build with a small team that are from the core country, and then you can hire the salespeople once you've found the formula for the market.
Yeah, we have a strong opinion about European companies going to San Francisco. Like, unless you're deeply entrenched in your client base out there, like it's an 11-hour flight. There's no working hours. There's so many challenges that you're going to just have to hurdle over on top of.
Yeah, the crossover's killer. Yeah, like just trying to find overlap with the team after you've done a full day. And then they have all their questions of the team, and then there'll be no overlap. So again, everything's delayed, so everything's harder. So I'm East Coast, West Coast. I think that the right choice was East Coast for sure. When we moved over.
Yeah.
Speaking of those cultural differences, we've talked Boston, New York, San Francisco, New York, East Coast, West Coast. But the difference between U.S. sales talent and in the U.K., we know that there's more competition. The comp expectations are obviously a lot higher. The churn is faster. So when you were hiring AEs and different leaders in the U.S., what did you have to recalibrate to work there versus what had worked for you here in the UK?
So cost, of
Yeah.
course. So like the cost is the big one. I mean, it's about all included, about 2 times more expensive. I don't know what you say. What was your opinion?
We say whatever you've planned, just add 20 to 30% on it, and then probably another 20, 30%.
Yeah. Yeah, the 20, 30% is about right. But I think building out the whole team, the marketing, for instance, like if you're doing marketing in the US, it's about 1.5 to 2 times more expensive, right? So, and then you've got a higher churn rates, I would say, like in terms of there's a lot more competition for that talent. So also you're a satellite office. So what you really need to do is make sure you implant culture, but it's still going to be a satellite office. So it's still not going to be as connected to the home country as, and so that creates like a higher churn in terms of staffing. I'd say like we started off as in SMB and then scaled into mid-market and enterprise. And when we scaled into mid-market and enterprise, that was after we moved to the US. I think the US talent brought in a lot of those practices. They'll help bring in a lot of practices that helped us to develop our playbooks there in mid-market and enterprise. That's a big factor of why to move to the US, is that you're going to bring in a lot of experience that's going to help you grow globally and bring in that expertise. So, that's a big benefit. And of course, you have to pay for that, for bringing that in. And then you have to really engage and then understand, that you'll have a particular methodology of how you sell, and the people that you're bringing in have come from different methodologies. You have to really understand their system against your current system, and then like where do you evolve the system to get to a good system that works? Like what frameworks are you using? How have they been trained? Assessing the talent. Again, like I think there's a difference between somebody who's been 2 years in mid-market in UK and somebody who's been 2 years mid-market in the US, right? In terms of what they've been exposed to, and the maturity of the organization that they've been working for.
How did you adapt to that? Like, how did you adapt your process between from very start, like even writing the job description, defining the process, knowing what you were looking for, evaluating candidates, in that shift from UK to US versus what you had done in London previously? We
brought in some of our board experience in terms of hiring for the US to help with, I think that's the thing of like making sure that you're bringing in people who've done it before, checking what your processes are now against, what they would see as best practice. I think you have to really step through on the interview process. US salespeople, of course, are very good at selling themselves first, right?
They can all sell at least themselves.
Yes. I would say far better than European salespeople, right? I think in Europe we're far more modest about ourselves. In the US, it is really important to sell yourself, and so I think you're initially as a European blown away by the interview processes very easily, and so that's an easy trap to fall into. So then it's a question of, okay, like what has that individual really delivered? What do they really understand about how they sell and the sales processes? And again, you've got to take with a pinch of salt claims, right, about performance. So reference checking as much as you can is just in general is really important. So, I think like overall you just have to go a lot deeper, and, again, I think like paying up a bit more and I wouldn't want to be cheap in the US market. You probably end up with like very, very subpar hires. So you really want to pay and get the best talent and really make sure that you've gone in depth on their skill base and reference checking.
Yeah, from a price and sticker shocks, one of the biggest things we see, like founders, we watch their face just get so surprised when we talk their salaries. But we call it the cost of coffee. So like you go to Blue Bottle Coffee in New York and it's $9. Like it's not that these people are all just trying to take your money. It's they truly have a higher cost of living.
Yeah, Blue Bottle's great. I pay my $9. Yeah, so I think there's the price of being cheap is far higher than the price of paying and getting the talent. And so you should ask around, reference check. Make sure that see get opinions from the market on that talent, and then but yeah, like you should really pay up and get great talent.
James, you mentioned before implanting your culture. How much were you implanting and almost pushing your culture versus integrating and adapting your culture into the U.S. culture?
So initially, I think the first SDR hires we had in the US, we brought them over to the UK, and they spent time in London with the team, and then of course we had our team members out there initially in New York, working with them, building it out, and then we had like regular rotations over. So we built out like company values. We did regular presidents clubs where we brought everybody together. We flew everybody out from the US to Hvar in Croatia and Ibiza. That was like a big highlight for the sales teams. So I think that instead of doing separate events, I think that was really important. And then that senior management would go over for we would do like summer parties and like winter parties. So I'd try and be there as much as I could be there for those events. I think like that helped to create a really good culture. That helped to, I think, reduce the churn that would be there if it wasn't a fun place to work.
Yeah.
So there was a playbook at work there. Like if I put it like that, in terms of making sure that there was a regular flow of ideas, people, and that again, like keeping a good blend on the senior management team of people, so that that again you didn't have one culture dominating across the org. That was when it worked best.
Yeah.
Talking a little bit about just moving into a new region, and you've made this point before that having a strong brand and positioning in one region doesn't necessarily translate to the next. How does that affect how you hire, and how much work should founders be doing on that positioning before moving to the US?
We had a very strong position as you're a leading European data company. Initially, when we went out, my view is, to be a global data provider, competing with our competitors globally.
Mm-hmm.
Like we settled then on a niche, and the niche was helping US companies come to Europe, right? And being the best European B2B data provider. So like I was far more ambitious initially when we landed, and then we niched. And I think like the niche, you really saw that our win rates were far higher going after an ICP that was resonating with that message.
Yeah.
So it's really about understanding the customer pain, and then building great lists of those customers, and then communicating that pain as best as possible. So like that research on where is the pain that customers have right now. Initially, we lent into dissatisfaction with our competitors, and it worked. Like you could pick up customers that were dissatisfied, but again, I think there was a weaker pain point which led to lower retention than the pain point of companies that really wanted to succeed in Europe, because that's more of an ongoing commitment, right? Versus I'm just not happy with this other provider. So I think building the sales strategy where you really have moat, right, in terms of and that like that moat flows through from the product to the messaging. I think that again helps with better win rates and stickier customers.
Yeah. And we've talked about this a little bit around like higher churn rates with talent in the US. What should founders expect in terms of churn? Like what did you find when you came over? And was there anything that you did around the team structure or the comp model that helped you get a little bit more stability? Or what would you tell other founders in terms of that?
I don't think we did anything specifically different to the UK in terms of comp model. Again, it's in terms of I think like creating a president's club that everybody was included in was it helped with the stickiness to make it feel like it was one giant team.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, you have to pay. I mean, so when I say like that, like in terms of you have to pay the market rate, right? So you're always going to get a bit of dissatisfaction across the August if, people in similar roles are paid different amounts. You just have to deal with that. That's just one of those questions you have to, have an answer for. Being on market and, again, like paying a little bit up on market for like the better, more senior talent, like having good senior leadership in place that people look up to, aspire to. I mean, that's a big lesson, right? You again, it's another reason why it's worth paying up for the senior talent, especially if you can find that senior talent that is really engaged with, like actually engaged. That like you probably see this more. I mean, we had an in-office culture, and so I feel like it weakens it when it's remote. I mean, it makes it even more harder than it was before. So, I'm a big believer, more than ever, after seeing the full cycle of in-house to remote. The actually having a in-office talent is key to building culture and to create stickiness and just to get the best performance. I know some founders that don't agree with that, but like that was my view.
James, what about you talk about finding talent, and not to lead you down a path or anything, but what's the difference when you're searching for talent with working with recruiters and firms in the US versus the UK? I
mean, we worked with you.
And
it was a really great experience. I think it depends on the recruiter, right? So, there's a big difference between a recruiter that knows the talent in the market, and knows who's good, is doing some filtering, right? That's why we really like working with you, because you're really good at filtering, and making sure that the candidates that we got were great candidates. I think it's a global thing in terms of the great search firms know the talent very deeply in the market, meet them on a regular basis, have a good feel for the market, have a good feel for market rates. We had experience of different. I won't name any of different firms, right? And so different firms were at different levels there. Some are just volume shops, right? And so those you really want to avoid. So you really do want to go and work with a specialist in the area. I think again, it's just so much time, it's so expensive, and it's so, the stat I found before is that 70% of European companies going to America fail. I think you said that it was probably far higher. I was surprised with that many. So you really don't want to be cheap again, right? Like being cheap has a very high price, and so spending for a really good recruiter that's specialist in the market makes a big difference in terms of getting the talent. I think also like the talent is more engaged when they come through that type of a selective process through a recruiter that they know is specialist in their field. Like they know you're not cheap, right? Yeah. And that's a good first signal. So but in terms of who they're picking, where they're picking to go.
If you could go about the US differently, you mentioned a few things that you would change, but what would be the one learning like that you would pass on? If there's a founder listening, hopefully there's at least one, that is thinking about the US right now, like what's your you have to do this, and this is.
I think it's where we started it. You have to take talent from the home country and you have to move it there. Ideally, as a founder, if you really want it to succeed, then you really need to move there yourself, right? Like, and spend time there. I think the founder going there and being based there and then doing all of that work on iterating with the potential customer base on ICP and messaging and getting really the right niche and positioning, and seeing that work out with high win rates before you put the foot on the pedal, and then start hiring out sales talent. Like the sales talent should be coming into a small pipeline that has high win rates and a very clean ICP, right? Like that. If that doesn't exist, you should not be putting the foot on the pedal. You shouldn't be hiring sales talent. If that doesn't exist, you really have nothing, and you're really going to waste everybody's time and money for bringing capital in, trying to accelerate from nothing.
What other signals would you say, like, or tell a UK or European founder, that are like, yeah, we're ready to get into the US. You have those win rates. What else would you look at? Like, what's an honest signal that, like, yes, and then like maybe you don't have quite what you need yet?
Well, it's interesting to say, like, if you had US customers from your home country currently, as customers sat in your CRM already, is that enough of a signal to say, okay, let's go and set up a team there? I would say not, right? Like, I would say that you really need to go and set up a team there and start to source customers there, because, again, you need to really dissect why you got those US customers, from the home country, right? Can you really sell consistently in the same way? That can kind of trick you, right? Especially if you've got like kind of US names that have, set up in Europe, and then you've got a US name, but bought, from their European base they bought, so right?
We have Pfizer as a logo, but it's really Pfizer's office in Amsterdam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then again, it's just the scaling is different. You need to get used to the cost of the hires. You need to really reposition all your materials with a US face, like in terms of the US voice, one of the lessons from our marketing team was just that, there needed to be a US seller on the marketing. So, all of that work needs to be done. All of that base needs to be built. And for your new messaging, for, your go-to-market in the US, and that needs a very specific, well thought out strategy with some initial metrics.
It's funny. We're like a really picky country. Like, even if something's written in British English, there's two ways it gets viewed. If somebody understands that, they're like, well, you've just been lazy with your marketing, and that should be a Z or a Z, not an S. And there's probably a large portion of the country still that like doesn't understand that and just assumes that you made a spelling error in your marketing. So yeah, it's tricky. Got to navigate it right from the marketing front too.
It's a very competitive market, so like everything has to be like sharp, right?
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes if that is, you don't have the full machine spinning in some basic form in the US.
Yeah. I don't like this term's a little weird, but like boots on the ground from the founder standpoint, like the success rate we see when founders not only move or send their leadership person or spend meaningful time versus the ones that try to do it from afar is like, you can't even compare them.
I think you just have to make, if you're going in the US, you have to really get early hires, or ideally the founder located there at least for an initial kickoff period.
James, little quick fire. Couple, just give me which one you like better. Shake Shack or In-N-Out?
I had tried In-N-Out for the first time last time. I thought I really enjoyed it, but I really love Shake Shack.
I do too. It's my favorite.
Claude or OpenAI?
Oh, I'm a shareholder of OpenAI, but actually right at the moment, Claude.
Boston or New York?
Oh, I love New York because I'm just I love New York. I enjoy my visits to Boston, but like you can't beat New York for like the theater and the just the vibe of the city.
All right, I know you like a bit of comics sometimes. So DC or Marvel?
DC.
Okay. That's all I got today.
All right, great. Good quick fire. James, thank you so much for joining us, coming down to our little makeshift studio in London. It's always a joy to see you, and I know this episode will be very helpful to a lot of founders.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, James. This conversation with James has been great. And I think the through line for me is that US expansion isn't a hiring problem. It's usually a readiness and a sequencing problem. And the hiring just reveals that you didn't get those foundations right. You can find more about James and his work in the show notes. If this episode was useful, please like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss our next episode. We're putting out new conversations every fortnight, and there's a lot more to come. We'll see you next time on Human First.